back with the nation. It's almost 20 years since the last national government took the sledgehammer to the trade union movement. Ever since the Employment Contracts Act of 1991, unions in this country have had to fight for what they consider an uneven and unfair playing field. But one of the country's newest unions appears to be relishing the fight. Supporters say that Matt McCarten's small but growing Unite union is showing others how it's done. Daryl Hutchison has our report.
A wintry day outside JBHI-Fi's Central Wellington store. As good a place as any to begin a story about a little union making a big noise.
It's a story of workers who get paid just 75 cents above minimum wage, and a story of workers who have not had a pay increase in 2 years.
Flying their red flag and backed by the brass Razoo Solidarity Band. This is Unite in typical action. A short, sharp strike to inconvenience the employer.
Of an Australian boss who pays himself $3 million a year.
And a mega burst of pavement preaching, although in this weather it's mostly to the converted.
Workers at JBHI have beaten the odds, folks. It's not many retail workers in this country who stand up and tell their boss they want a union agreement.
Oh, they brought in an Australian hatchet man in the last 3 weeks to try and bust the union, and it's had an opposite effect. It's actually recruited people to the union.
Standing behind the JBHI-Fi workers is veteran trade unionist and one-time Alliance politician Matt McCarten.
And we're going to go there and give them a sense of what we want to achieve before the end of the year.
And with McCarten, a team that includes veteran campaigner John Minto and between 5,000 and 9,000 other members, the number depending on whom you ask. When their strategy works, also roped onto the team the customers of whichever business is being targeted.
We have to actually engage the customers and say, is this sort of a business that you should be supporting? And that's where companies, it's been our experience, feel a hit.
What I think Matt's done is he's understood that negative publicity in this modern age is almost as effective as a really big picket line outside a factory. And he specialises in bringing massive pressure to bear on employers.
In Auckland, it's publicity in a leaflet.
They don't like us telling the staff. I think they'll like it less when we start telling the public.
The target this time is Sky City Casino because of what the union considers the serial unfair treatment of workers.
Some information there about slavery at Sky City.
It just puts a bit of public pressure on the company itself to do the right thing by its workers.
Good on you.
All right, oh, look at that. Cheers, ma'am. Legend.
Support the workers.
While at JBHI-Fi and many other work sites, Unite introduced unionism where none existed. Here, newcomer Unite moved into a site where the Service and Food Workers Union was already entrenched.
We organised Sky City, we got the first collective agreement. Unite came in and started recruiting some of their members.
So did you regard that as poaching?
Yeah. And set up, and that's not the first place, there's a number of places this has happened.
I know that's a good story. It's a good story. You see.
Well, it's also a claim.
No, but I'm saying it's a story.
It led to a whole lot of tension between the two groups and a whole lot of fights.
You know, I get a bit annoyed, and I think that's what's wrong, that somehow that unions think, you know, you've only got one choice, it's us or nobody.
We're now sharing the same collective agreement. We are happy with the combined approach.
But in most cases, such as in the fast food industry, Unite is the only real choice, and until it came along, there was none. Where Unite has made its mark is by unionising workers who previously had no representation, many of them young, casual and on low wages, and willing to join campaigns like the successful Supersize My Pay Blitz.
In terms of campaigning, I think he's one of the most successful campaigners the trade union movement's seen for a long time. He's actually succeeding in organising many of the workers who are generally considered here and overseas to be either unorganisable or a very, very difficult proposition. We're talking about people in cinemas, language schools, hotels, security guards, call centres.
First of all, you need to convince the workers on site, then you engage the customers in the community and win the fight there, then you get the political change. And we've done that on every single campaign we've done.
Because of the attention it attracts, it's worth repeating that Unite remains a small player on a big team. Although it's also worth noting that thanks largely to the Bolger National Government, the entire team is nowhere near as big as it used to be. In terms of membership, the trade union movement has never recovered from the Employment Contracts Act of 1991.
Amid a storm of protest, the Act scrapped the centralised system of compulsory arbitration and national awards, replacing them with collective or individual employment contracts. Unions were reduced to the status of optional bargaining agents, and their membership halved during the decade that followed. And although Labour's Employment Relations Act in 2000 restored some rights to unions, it failed to restore union strength.
Solidarity
The proportion of wage and salary earners who belong to unions has been almost static at just over 20% ever since. But take out the government workers, and in the private sector, it's only about 10%.
The Employment Relations Act really just gave the unions a platform on which to make a pitch to the workers. It really didn't do much more than that.
I think that one of the truisms about the union movement today is that hundreds and hundreds of workers don't have their terms and conditions set by collective bargaining because the nature of the legislation just makes that too hard, and that is a real challenge for us.
I think the problem for most unions is that they have to service the existing agreements they have and the existing workforces that they have covered, and that quite simply takes up all their time.
With 45,000 members, the biggest private sector union is the all but omnipresent Engineering, Printing and Manufacturing Union. Secretary Andrew Little says recruitment can be, in his words, hard yakka.
The voluntaristic environment is it requires unions to work much harder in terms of convincing people about the benefits of the union and why you should go there.
How long are we going to put up with this corporate greed?
Like his counterparts in other unions, he cites the membership disincentive of so-called free riding, whereby non-unionist workers share the gains won by their unionist co-workers without having to join the union themselves.
There is a major problem with the benefits of unionism aren't exclusive to union members, they go more broadly.
And I always say to those workers, well, if you want to be so principled, that's fine, but don't take the benefits.
Both union leaders agreed that industrial relations is a vastly different game to the one played 2 decades ago, and so do the employers.
Well, the relationship is much more complex than it was once. I mean, it used to be basically award bargaining and then enterprise bargaining and individual bargaining on top of that. Now, you'll see unions getting engaged in productivity initiatives with employers. You'll see them getting engaged in training and skills activities. You'll see them getting engaged in health and safety, work design, all sorts of things.
In terms of union leadership, it is about thinking strategically and tactically. What is the state of the economy? What's the state of the industries that the union is organising in?
And it's time New Zealand said, we had enough of this, matey.
Of his fellow union leader, Andrew Little says he considers Matt McCarten and Unite a success story.
Matt has done a tremendous job of building a union that has a very strong activist front.
Although the CTU president declines to single the union out.
There's a lot of very, very exciting work going on amongst New Zealand unions and including Unite.
But you don't see them as an example to the rest of the union movement?
No, I don't.
Back at Sky City, a Unite adversary, the Human Resources Chief does consider Unite a success, at least at building membership and profile, which doesn't mean she always appreciates its tactics, especially stunts like protesting on the gaming floor and targeting clients.
In that situation, certainly from my standpoint, and I think from an employer's standpoint, you tend to go, right, well, that's it. Until you guys settle down, we're actually not going to talk.
I think there's been a turn in recent times, and it frustrates me because there's no engagement. They just get lawyers to hide behind.
We don't actively seek to engage with the union, so that's fair. We tend to respond when they raise issue with us because we're required to do that in law. We don't hide behind lawyers, though. Would it be easier without the unions? Sure. And do I think that our staff would have as good, if not better, employment conditions and benefits? Yeah, I do.
So am I going too far to suspect that you think that unions are a necessary evil?
The only word in there that I'd question would be necessary.
To the CTU, necessary is of course the key word, and the council wants lawmakers to compel employers to give workers greater collective rights from the moment they first walk into a new workplace.
Well, we want to discuss with a future government, and we're prepared to discuss with this government, but we certainly want to discuss with the future government that concept of people being able to access those rights.
Should the government do anything? Well, I hope they don't, in the sense that I hope that the government basically says, well, people should be able to bargain for wages in ways that they find most agreeable. And unions have a role in that, but they don't have an exclusive role.
We're not suggesting compulsory union membership or anything like that, but we think that workers should have that genuine choice so that when they walk in, there is a collective agreement.
We all know the vast majority of workers in the private sector are bargaining with employers just as happy as heck.
The vast majority are just as happy as heck. Your response?
Well, I don't think that's true.
Nor does the secretary of the EPMU. And Andrew Little suggests even some union members may be justifiably unhappy with their union.
There remains a problem in the union movement that there are too many unions, in my view, in crucial parts of the labour market and the economy that aren't doing enough to keep pressure on wages and conditions.
And you're now prepared to name them?
No, I won't name them.
Any list of underperformers would be unlikely to include the name Unite, just as Unite's JBHI members certainly aren't happy as heck. Their union promises it will keep the pressure on, while at the same time it keeps up its membership campaign, which, considering the high staff turnover in most of the industries in which it operates, is non-stop. In downtown Auckland, the security industry organiser tempts a non-member with plans to try to negotiate a multi-employer collective agreement.
Which means trying to lift all the company's wages together so there's no more undercutting.
The union says it's signed up 300 security officers so far this year.
We'll see you again soon.
Yes, welcome to the union. See you later, eh?
Unite is also planning what could be its biggest campaign ever, a coordinated approach across several service industries to exploit the PR and power opportunities presented by next year's Rugby World Cup.
We don't want to wreck the World Cup, no, of course not. But we certainly are going to be lining up the employers at that time and saying, well, you're going to make a lot of money. You know, what's going to be the workers' share?
It's typical McCarten, a threat of in-your-face action from the union movement's most prominent in-your-face activist. So prominent that some question whether Unite could prosper if Matt McCarten were to step aside.
If something happened to Matt, I think there would be a struggle at Unite to proceed at the speed and with the degree of success that union has experienced, largely because of Matt McCarten's leadership.
But even if they were to go into decline, if Matt left, they would still have made a difference for a lot of people for a considerable period of time.
As for the man himself, he insists the union would manage without him. Unite, he says, is much more than a one-man band.
Yes, I am the secretary of the union, but you won't see the materials that we produce with, my face on it.
There's no Matt McCarten cult.
In this office? Yeah, right.